Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your intuitive astrology forecast for the week of October 26th to November 1st of 2025. In this video, I will intuitively tune in to my own higher self, to both the major and minor aspects that will be happening this week. Well, most of the minor aspects anyway. To get the overall just energetic vibe of what is going on. Okay, and then at the end of the video, I will intuitively tune in again just to get the overall kind of vibe for the week in case it's not quite clear through, the video, kind of piecing it all together. Now, what I do, the type of astrology that I do in this video is, of course, intuitive astrology, but it's also called mundane astrology. Intuitive astrology is not mundane astrology, they're separate things, but what I'm trying to say is that what I'm tuning into here in terms of mundane astrology is the fact that it's for us, like globally, which could be like politically, economically, that type of stuff, etc. Okay, this isn't an all signs or a sun sign whatever type of a forecast. I don't do that because, to be honest, most of those are just bullshit. Okay, seriously. Okay, if you're just focusing on your sun sign or what they call your big three or whatever, you're honestly just missing the point. All right, because if you want a reading for you, you need a reading for you. You need to look at your own chart because it's just, you just can't go by your sun sign or just narrow it down to those things. You just simply cannot. Okay, that's just not how it works. All right, and you're just kind of being fed a lie by those who are just narrowing it down and basically literally watering it down in that sense. Now, all that being said, of course, if you are looking for a reading with me, I do offer personal readings. Of course, you don't have to get one or anything. It's totally up to you. But if you are looking for any kind of reading with me, those links are in the description below. And of course, I still do offer the $10 3-minute just a quickie reading. If you have just a quick question or just something to focus on or something you're going through and you maybe want some insight on that, that's there. Of course, I do offer longer readings as well. And those are linked in the description too. Now, before we get into the charts here, of course, as I say at the beginning of all of my videos, my guidance has been and likely always will be, astrology is an energetic template conducive to certain things. Meaning the energetic template is there, the chart is that energetic template, all right? And the analogy they gave me is it's like a math formula, okay? And there's variables that exist within that formula, and those variables we are able to change, okay? Because we have free will. All right, so that energetic template is still there, so things are still going to happen in certain ways, but we still have, of course, free will within that, right? And of course, because I get things through intuitively in these videos, any kind of prediction that I make about a future event or future stuff that is going on is, of course, like I said, always subject to change. That is for any reading, whether it's astrology, whether it's a card reading, whether it's any kind of intuitive or fucking runes or whatever. It doesn't matter. Anything regarding the future is always subject to change because it is being created as we move forward. Okay, we have free will. All right. Now, with all of that being said, we can get into the charts for this week. Okay, all right, so I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let me pull it up on my end and we're good to go. Okay, so let's go here. So we're obviously going to start here on Sunday, October the 26th. And we're going to start off on this day. We're going to have Venus in sesqui-square to Uranus retrograde here. Now it's 0 degrees of Gemini. Okay, sesqui-square is like, in terms of the angle, it's like a square and a half, so it's like a super square. It really pushes for resolution to something or something that can't be swept under the rug any longer. Now, let me just intuitively tune in here. So that's Venus and sesqui-square to Uranus. Venus sesqui-square to Uranus. What I'm feeling is justice and change. I get the idea of like people, what I get is this people aspect with Venus, Libra, maybe there's a people aspect, but it's surrounding also with that Libran part. So I think there's a Venus, the people aspect, and then the Libran part, it's like this justice part It's almost like maybe people are speaking out or there's something like that going on, and it's surrounding aspects of change. I hear maybe surrounding peace again. I'm getting that feeling through this. I get that with that Uranian vibe. It feels very humanitarian. Or surrounding those kinds of themes. Now, as I've said before, with this Uranus retrograde, with this initial part in Gemini, is it's going to bring awareness to, of course, what needs to change. So this could be calling out aspects of, injustices and things like that, as we have Venus in Libra. So we're dealing with this people aspect, with this aspect of justice, etc. And then it's maybe pushing with this awareness of surrounding what needs to change in that way. Okay, anything else with this? I'm not getting anything else with that, so let's just move on here. But that's the vibe that I'm getting with that one. We're also going to have Mars here conjunct Black Moon Lilith here in Scorpio. Okay, so let me just tune in here. Mars conjunct Black Moon Lilith. I almost feel like it's like rebellious action. But it's I get this transformative vibe at the same time, along with that. I get rebellious because it's that Lilith energy, and she's badass. I like her, okay? And I'm almost getting her like laughing at me again here. Like if you watch the last week's video, what I get when I tune into that energy. But what I get is almost like her vibe, that Lilith vibe, is like taking action, with that Mars energy taking action as towards this transformation and ultimately change. It almost seems rebellious. I don't know. I don't really know what else to say to that other than just that. So let's leave it at that. Anyway, that's Sunday, so that's an interesting Sunday to say the least. Let's move on to Monday here, the 27th. See what we've got. So we've got Venus here now making minor aspects to the nodes. So we've got Venus here. Where are we? Semi-sextile to the south node, and then quincunx to the north node there in Pisces. Okay, let's tap into that. So Venus making just the overall energy first of Venus aspecting the nodes here. And the word that I get is there's a letting go. Okay, but I feel that's that semi-sextile to the south node. What I get is like this aspect of a group of people. It's almost like that on wanting for justice and change, there's something that has to be let go of, or there's a letting go. Okay, now I'm getting it, and there's a frustration with the path forward because it involves letting go of stuff that we've deemed as practical previously. Okay, so, and with that quincunx there's an integration, or there's a frustration with that movement forward, because that north node in Pisces is a new path forward that maybe we can't clearly see or don't fully understand, and because of that you don't want to trust it, or certain people maybe don't want to trust it because they want to hold on to what they feel is practical, but they need to but with the south node here, we need to let go of what we once thought was practical and begin to move in a new direction that's almost sight unseen. Okay, so, and that's what's frustrating here is this north node, what I feel is it's very positive to me. All right, but nobody's really listening to how they're feeling, I guess, because they're just like, oh, well, they're not fully understanding it, and that's maybe where that frustration lies within that. Okay, so that's kind of the vibe with that. So the other thing that we're going to have happening today is going to be that we're going to have Mars here in quincunx to Chiron as well. Now, Chiron is in Mars' sign of Aries. So, and Chiron is retrograde too. So let me just tune in here to this Mars and Scorpio quincunx to Chiron retrograde. I feel this transformative Scorpio energy. Okay, there's taking action towards whatever these old wounds were. Of course, in Aries, we're dealing with like our independence, sovereignty, individuality. That's what I kind of feel with that. What I get with the quincunx is kind of like a whoa. Like, it's not taken well by maybe a lot of people because they're not understanding what it actually truly is what I get with that. And I've gotten this before in these videos, in that a lot of what we see in the world currently is not entirely what is actually really going on. Okay? As in, we may be seeing something for face value, but we don't exactly know the real reason behind why it's happening or what truly is going on. Okay? And in this sense, that's maybe what is deemed frustrating, because there's action being taken to transform something, these wounds, etc., independence, but it's frustrating because we're not fully understanding. Okay, what I'm kind of getting is Scorpio is the depth. Okay, what I'm getting here with this, Scorpio is the depth, and it's diving deep into taking action to get to the root of things to change. What the issue with that is nobody wants to see it for what it is. Okay, Scorpio may be willing to reveal that, to show you what it really is. But the thing is, people don't like Scorpio because they're not even willing to look at these skeletons in their own closet. They're not even willing to go within themselves and look at what's maybe wrong with themselves, or what they need to heal within themselves, or change within themselves, or look at the trauma within themselves. And if you're not able to do that, then you're likely not going to listen when something else is going on in the world that's forcing you to have a look at something that you basically, quote unquote, don't want to see. Okay, but you need to see it. Okay, you need to see that it's happening. You need to be aware that, hey, look over here. This is wrong. It needs to be looked at. You've got to face it so we can transform and change it. But everybody wants to go like this. Okay, that's part of what the frustration is with this in healing these wounds, is because nobody is actually willing to properly face what needs to be faced. Okay? But it's like there's action going on to face it, maybe by someone or something or whatever, and people get frustrated by it because they don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. But it's the truth, and they need to see it and hear it. So, yeah. I'm just going to leave it at that. Let's move on to Tuesday the 28th. That's all for Monday. Let's move on to Tuesday the 28th. And we're going to have Mars here in trine to Jupiter in Cancer. Okay, what I initially get is this is also in reflection of whatever this quincunx is, because Jupiter expands what it touches. So there's a positivity that is occurring here with this trine, with this expansion of the whatever this action that is being taken to transform something and maybe show it for what it is. And that leads to maybe this frustration or whatever in healing these wounds, could possibly even be triggering something surrounding that. But because you're not willing to look at it for what it is, or you're not seeing the full picture because you're not able to, or whatever the fuck, that's where it gets frustrating. Okay, let me tune in a bit more to this Mars trine Jupiter. What I get is, it's like that mother feminine energy that knows what she's got to do something, even though she knows it's going to piss somebody off. She's like, well, yeah, we got to do this. We got to deal with this. We've got to take care of this. It's almost like okay, we got to set these rules or set these boundaries for the kids, even though we know that they're not going to like it. Okay, but we got to do it anyway because we know that we know what there's going to be repercussion and backlash, but we also know as the parent and as someone who's seeing things from that different level that this has to be done in this way. All right? So that's the energy that I get with that in terms of that action that is being taken for that transformation or whatever from that perspective. It's like, okay, we've got to do this to look after this or nurture this or whatever, but we know that they're probably not going to like it. Okay? That's what that is. All right. We're also going to have Mercury, where are we here? Mercury in quintile to the south node. Mercury at 29 degrees of Scorpio. And in shadow period, okay, quintile, Mercury in quintile to the south node. I get kind of what I got in last week's video surrounding the shadow period, is in feeling like looking over where we need to like reach a state of peace, where we need to look at moving forward, making progress. It feels like more humanitarian. But with this, I'm getting drawn to the fact of what we need to let go of that we're used to that is no longer serving us. This feels a bit more internally focused. Okay? So it may be something that's in the awareness sphere, but is not directly being talked about or focused on. It's just a general thing that is occurring, but it's just it's on the side burner. Let's just put it that way. Because I feel it's because of this aspect that Mercury's in shadow and through retrograde. This is about the reflection that is occurring with this and not necessarily directly moving forward yet. Okay? Now, and of course with that biquintile, that relates to more of a behind the scenes kind of a thing too. All right, so but it's not like it's hiding. It's just, it's not right in your face, okay, is kind of what that is. All right, we're also going to have the sun here in Scorpio in biquintile to Neptune retrograde, of course, now in Pisces. I'm getting this again as it relates to like this, it's like this aspect of peace. Okay, I feel like transforming to this aspect of peace because in last week's video, I said this Neptune retrograde into Pisces is, it's aspect of like softening, almost like softening to love. There's this aspect of softening, right? And with the sun here in Scorpio signifying this idea of transformation. What we're transforming to is into that like peace. We're in that loving state. It then it's transforming into that space. But this is almost like something that is just, what I get is happening unbeknownst to us. Look, I'm just the messenger here, okay? But that's what I feel. Is there anything else to this? Let me just see here. I'm just getting what I've already felt, so it's like I said in last week's video that maybe something surrounding more peace talks or moving forward in a new direction that is aligned with that aspect of maybe peace or that softening or moving into that state of love more, really. All right, I'm just going to be done with that for today. Let's move on to Wednesday the 29th. So on Wednesday the 29th, this is when we're going to have Mercury now moving into Sagittarius. Of course, this is temporary initially because Mercury is in shadow period. Mercury will begin its retrograde, I believe, November 9th. I believe November 9th, mid or afternoonish, just after lunch Central Time. And then most of the retrograde occurs in Scorpio. For some reason, I wanted to say Pisces with Scorpio. Okay, so there's something going on there, but I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, maybe it relates to the fact. Okay, what I'm getting is like Mercury, Sagittarius. A traditional ruler of Pisces is Jupiter, and then Sagittarius. Basically, Pisces and Sagittarius deal with like this more expansive kind of an energy. So maybe it's relating to that in a way too, in that sense. Maybe why I was getting that. But okay, let me just tune in. Mercury entering into Sagittarius. I'm going to tune in here. What do we got? Mercury entering into Sagittarius. I feel like more global discussion. It feels more it feels more positive. There's a slight bit I can feel. I'm getting the more positive part of it, but then there's the bits where there's disagreement still between leaders, between whatever. But I'm feeling like it feels more positive in general, or it's more. How do I say that? It's like more proper discussion, more proper types of things going on. I feel like I said, an underlying positive, like it feels positive to me. It just feels positive to me. Maybe regardless of what it looks like on the surface, it just feels positive to me. What I'm getting the image that I'm getting is like, it's like leaders talking to each other, okay? You have to remember Sagittarius, that aspect of the global or other countries, global, different parts of the world. And it's like, in this sense, in mundane astrology, it's like these leaders that are now they're like talking to each other. Okay, there's things going, there's things. All I'm getting is them talking to each other. That's all I see. All right, I'm just going to stick with that. More global talk, more whatever. But like I said, with Mercury shadow, it's like an awareness, or even communication or awareness of how to move forward in a more peaceful direction. But it's like beginning to start to figure it out. It's like discussing it, working through it. Because remember, this is a retrograde. We're looking at these things and then re-looking and going over to be able to eventually at some point move forward with that. But it's like it's being talked about, things are discussed, but I don't necessarily feel any solidity yet to any of this. It's just, it's starting to come about. Okay? Is what I feel with that. Now, also on this day, we're going to have this first quarter moon. So Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Aquarius. Okay, initially what I get hit with is this idea. I get like this humanitarianism, liberation, freedom type of thing, and with that Sun in Scorpio, there's this transformative aspect to it. And remember, Pluto, the modern ruler of Scorpio, is in Aquarius too, so it's adding flavor to this energy. And I feel like with this, it's really that strong. It feels very honestly, it feels very positive with this transformative aspect in making like proper like humanitarian progress. Okay, proper change, proper progress. It feels very positive. It feels more light. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. Also on this day, we're going to have Mercury in trine to Neptune. Of course, this occurs before it comes into Sagittarius, okay? But of course, it's in and out of sign trine as it comes into Sagittarius too, okay? So let me just tune into this here, Mercury trine into Mercury trine Neptune. I get like what I get is like a more softer spoken, like a more loving energy that is coming through communicatively with this trine. And I get it. That helps to bring transformation, because it's almost like it's showing what we need. It's like it's showing that yes, we can still be this. Yes, we can move into this space. It's more of that softer expression from a more positive, loving kind of a space. Okay? Also on this day, we're going to have, Mercury again also now in a biquintile to Chiron retrograde. So, let me just see here. Mercury in that biquintile to Chiron retrograde. I almost get an anger with that Chiron in Aries. Is this, yeah, this looks like it comes after Mercury moves in, yes, after Mercury moves into Sagittarius with this biquintile, so hold on, I'm just trying to understand what I'm feeling here. It's like there could be some kind of a leader. Okay, what it feels like is it's triggering something maybe in a behind the scenes kind of a way. It feels like it could be forefront and then it's kind of folds under. But it could be triggering in some sense. But it's related to either like a country or global affairs in some way, and how it relates to sovereignty, etc. But what it's doing is it's leading to an internal realization of something. It's almost like maybe other people in other countries, etc., parts of certain teams are then working behind the scenes surrounding whatever like has been said. I'm just saying what like I'm getting. I don't... It can be hard to articulate at times. But that's what I get with that. We're also going to have Mars here in trine to Saturn, retrograde. Okay, Mars trine Saturn, what do we got? Sorry. Initially I get like a dissolving. Okay, so there's what I feel like is there's it's like an intense masculine energy that is taking action to something to transform and change, and it brings it to a more compassionate state, whatever this Saturn is. It's softening that control structure, or it's the dissolution of that malefic energy, like I said. But this masculine energy can feel very intense. It almost feels like, whether they're angry, it almost feels like maybe they're doing the wrong thing and what it maybe looks like on the surface, but what they're doing is something intense, or maybe setting boundaries or whatever, ultimately to do the right thing. And it's then softening whatever that Saturn is. Excuse me. But there, it feels like there is something that is going on there. With that, in that sense. Yeah, it feels like almost like somebody standing up. That's what it is. Feels like somebody standing up. It's almost like to whatever this control structure is, whatever that is, in order to knock it down. Because I've said before, Saturn in Pisces is like the dissolution of that malefic energy. Anyway, let's move on here to we're also going to have, where am I on my list here? Mercury in opposition to Uranus. This feels again positive, surrounding like that humanitarian. I get that humanitarianism vibe with this Uranian energy. But it's almost like what I get is like someone of a higher status, whether it's like a political leader or whatever, speaking out about, and I get a male figure, whether that's, okay, I'm feeling like that's not, it's just giving, that's just the analogy of it. It's not anyone specific. So I'm getting like just someone speaking out like in a positive way, surrounding like humanitarianism or that aspect of change. Sorry, I don't know what the hell is going on. What are you guys doing? Okay, so it's speaking out about some type of progress or change that needs to occur, needs to be made. It feels very positive though. So it feels like some kind of global leader or whatever speaking out about this in some way, or some prominent figure or something like that. That's the vibe that I'm getting with this. All right? Okay, so that's Wednesday the 29th. Just going to move on here to Thursday the 30th. On this day, we're going to have Chiron retrograde in quincunx to Black Moon, Lilith, and Scorpio. Okay, so there it's more clear now. Okay, so sorry guys, I don't know why I'm yawning so much. Maybe something's trying to come through or something, I don't know, but let me just okay. Chiron retro, see, you get all this on the fly. I'm not like making this up or whatever, like I'm getting it as I go. So, which is why I do this the way that I do it, so that you can see that it's real and coming through, whatever. Okay, Chiron and quincunx to Black Moon, Lilith. Sorry, I don't know what is going on. Chiron, quincunx, Black Moon, Lilith. Let's go. Oh, okay. I almost feel an intensity of standing up with that Lilith energy in terms of what has been wrong. But remember, Chiron is retrograde, so this can be dealing with these old wounds, these old things. But there's a frustration with the quincunx, and that could lead to this, like, it almost feels like this energy of like, hey, like, this has to be dealt. It almost feels like standing up for the little guy in a way, or so that they don't get stepped on or walked all over or something. But there's something there, because, okay, what I'm getting, because the Lilith energy usually deals with where we've been outcasted. So, and it's also very strong feminine energy too. Okay, so what I'm getting is the outcasted with that wound, etc. And it's like, hey, like, what about this? Hey, and it's like this Lilith energy in Scorpio is like trying to make aware and stand up for this. But there's, that frustration there that exists with that quincunx. That is, of course, highlighting that it needs to be looked at. It's frustrating because what I get is like maybe there's like higher ups or leaders that are just kind of, maybe they know that it's there, or they're just overlooking it because they don't want to see it. But then it's like, hey, you got to look at this, okay? All right. Also on this day, we're going to have Mercury in sextile to Pluto. What I get is that aspect of change again, that transformation and change that I felt very strongly in last week's video surrounding this Mercury shadow period and likely the retrograde as well. Okay, we're not there yet, so don't quote me on that, but with this sextile, it's like I said, that transformation and change. It feels like discussion, whatever, surrounding this aspect of humanitarian transformation and change that is needing to occur. Like I said in last week's video, it almost feels like maybe relating to like peace, ends of war, that kind of stuff. Talks surrounding this and how we can move forward into more of a state of peace. Okay? And that transformation, that change that needs to occur with that. All right, so that's all I'm going to say about that. Let me move on to Friday here, the 31st. And on Friday the 31st, we're just going to have Juno here in sesqui-square to Chiron retrograde. What I get is what's being dealt with is wounds to certain global partnerships. Remember, Juno represents committed partnerships, relationships, could be business contracts, that kind of thing. Okay, so what I get with this is surrounding maybe countries that have been hurt surrounding this or whatever, but there's some kind of wound to whatever because it's in Aries, this could deal with aspects of sovereignty, individuality, freedom, that kind of a sense, and maybe where people have been hurt. It's almost like what I get is someone speaking out about this. It doesn't necessarily feel like the political leader, but maybe they're a leader of some type of relation between nations. Okay, like how you have in certain politics, you have certain people that are designated to deal with relationships with other countries or international relations, or they're the ones that deal with trade, or they're the ones that deal with, it's like that. Okay, and it's like saying we've been hurt in this way, and it's like, but it's not even just saying that, it's like, yes, but it's dealing with it. Right? Because we're dealing with this super square here, this sesqui-square, and it's something that can't be swept under the rug any longer, and it's dealing with it. It's like the negative thing, but it feels very positive in terms of dealing with it. It doesn't feel like the negative thing is positive. What's positive is this aspect of actually coming to the table and trying to fix and deal with it in some way. Okay? That's what that feels like. All right. Let's move on to Saturday, November 1st. And on this day, we're going to have Venus here in this biquintile to the North Node. What I get is there's people working behind the scenes. It's almost like to bring balance and justice and moving in a new direction. It's working behind the scenes to move in a new direction. But I feel a Libran, like that Libran vibe. What I get is maybe more, it's like more dealing with it in an appropriate way, like a understanding both sides kind of a way, a more diplomatic way. I don't know how else I can describe it. But this is something that is occurring, like people that are talking behind the scenes. I get people, like people, plural, behind the scenes, dealing with that kind of an energy. And it's for movement and progress forward, but it feels like sight unseen. Again, like unseen. Okay? Also on this day, we're going to have, oh my goodness, where's my list here? Okay, the Sun in a semi-sextile to Juno. Okay. I get it's kind of pushy energy, but it's pushing towards what needs to change in these global relationships. It's almost like it could feel a bit dicey in some of these partnerships, global partnerships or whatever, but there's a push. It feels like a pushy energy. That pushy energy, what I feel is Scorpio. It feels like a very pushy energy to transform and shift something regarding these partnerships. It's regarding what it feels like is what I talked about with that Chiron stuff too, is where, you know, people may feel hurt or whatever, and it's almost like it's like, no, there's something that needs to change surrounding that, and that's where that pushiness kind of comes from. But it's surrounding whatever these global partnerships are in whatever way. All right, so that's that. Okay, I'm just gonna call it there. I thought this was frozen for a minute, but yeah, I'm just gonna call it there, bring it back to myself. All right, so that's the astrology. We're tuning into those astrological aspects for the week. I'm just going to tune in for an overall vibe. Initially, already what I get is I get like global leaders like talking, speaking out. I get an underlying positive energy to this is what I get with that. Anything else? And also, I'm hearing the word rectify and fix things. That feels very intense, maybe somewhat negative, but it's what it feels like is fixing those negative things, like I said, with that pushy energy near the end. It's like there's multiple levels to this, but ultimately it's all about moving forward in a new direction. But there's an underlying positivity that is here, whether we necessarily see it or not. Okay, but that's ultimately what it feels like. Okay, so yeah, if you've made it this far in the video, please leave a purple heart in the comments so I know you're a real one. Thank you all for watching, and yeah, I hope to see you all in next week's video. Take care, everyone. Bye.